Said Notre Dame, nope, they're crying. And the fact they didn't go to a bowl game, shame on you guys. You got players that are going to be, that could have played that could have played an extra football game, that probably would have loved to play an extra football game. They're graduating, will never play football again in their entire life, and you're throwing a fit because you didn't make it in the college football playoff. You could have played in the Pop Tarts Bowl against BYU, who is the number 12 team in the country. It would have been a great game. It would have been a fun game. I love the Pop Tarts Bowl. I wish the SEC had a tie into the Pop Tart Bowl. That way, if Mississippi State doesn't ever make the playoff, maybe they could shoot for the Pop Tarts Bowl. It's a fun bowl. So shame on you, Notre Dame. Shame on you for not sucking up your pride and going and giving your players a fun trip, a fun bowl against a good team to showcase and say, hey, look, this is what you could have had. But no, you decided not to do that. BYU honestly might be the other really team the only team that I might say that got shafted. The fact they were 11-1 going into the Big 12 championship, and the only way that they were ever going to make it into the playoff was to win that game. They only lost to one team this year, to Texas Tech. The problem that BYU had is when they played Texas Tech, they got crushed both times. So I don't know. Like I said, I feel bad for BYU because of that. It feels like if any team feels like they got a shaft, it's them. But like I said, they still had 2 losses. And if you end up losing 2 games, like I said, you're just not fortunate like the other teams are. So we'll take a look at the first round matchups when we get a little bit closer to them. I'll give you my predictions on who will win. But for now, like I said, I think for the most part, they got it right. I really do. I think that the committee did a pretty good job. Here's the deal, though. I hear people talk about, well, they had made a precedent with this. They made a precedent with that. Guys, we are not talking about constitutional law. We are talking about the College Football Playoff Committee. They're not going to have precedents. They're just going to go by their guts. They're going to go by their feelings. They're going to go by what they see week in and week out. They are not setting precedents with what they did. If they were setting precedents, like I said, Ohio State would have dropped further than from 1 to 4, because when Georgia lost to Alabama a couple of years ago, they went from either the number 1 or the number 2 team in the country all the way down to number 5, and they fell out of the college football playoff. They aren't setting precedents. Like I said, this is not constitutional law. You have precedents when you're talking about court cases and things like that. You don't have precedents when you're talking about ranking college football teams. It just doesn't. Go look at any AP poll and look at how people vote. You can look this stuff up if you didn't know that. The way people vote makes no sense. If you're looking for precedents and how if they did this thing one week, they have to do it another week. No, they don't. It's not the way it works. We need to stop talking about how if they did it this week, they have to do the same next week. No, they don't. That's not the way college football rankings works. There's not a whole lot of logic to it. There's some, not a lot.